back here.
Yeah. We're going to start any minute now.
Okay, give, yeah, a little bit. You can just do that. I think this is a very English crowd, too, since the book is in English.
One.
Hello. Hello. Welcome.
Bonsoir tout le monde, bienvenue.
We just have a little announcement to say before tonight's beautiful, blessed conversation we're about to witness. And just that before shows at Suoni, Popolo this year, we're asking people as they leave if they would like to participate in some of the actions that we have going on. And tonight's we have postcards that everybody could sign, please, as you leave, and we'll mail them in the morning. And they're about the illegal dumping that's going on at Kanesatake right now. And we also have these patches that were made on Sunday by Mohawk artist Martin Loft. And if we sell them out tonight, we'll raise $500 to support the Mohawk Immersion School in Ganawake. and they're at the front. Minimum donation $5. Let's do it!
Alors, nous avons des cartes postales que vous pouvez signer pour appuyer la lutte contre les déchets illégaux à Kanasatake. Et nous avons aussi les patchs que vous pouvez acheter pour une contribution suggérée de 5 piastres pour appuyer l'école d'immersion Mohawk. Je vais juste présenter notre modératrice pour ce soir. I'm going to present our moderator for this evening, and I'm going to do this in English. My apologies. Given that the book is in English and the conversation is in English, I hope most people in the room can understand spoken English. Gadzit Sagwez Ellen Gabriel is from the Kanekahega Nation, Turtle Clan, from Kanasatake, Kanekahega territory. She's a documentarian, a visual artist, an indigenous human rights and environmental rights activist. She's a recent graduate from the New York Film Academy in documentary filmmaking, this education has provided her with new tools in her advocacy. She participated in Doc NYC in November 2021 with her first film, Strong Spirits, on the issue of Indigenous residential schools in Canada. Ms. Gabriel is also well known to the public when she was chosen by the people of the Longhouse and her community of Kanasatake to be their spokesperson during the 1990 Oka crisis to protect the pines from the expansion of a 9-hole golf course. Since 1990, she has advocated for the rights to self-determination of Indigenous peoples and has worked diligently to sensitize the public on the issues and realities of Indigenous peoples. She has traveled extensively in Canada and internationally in her advocacy work and participated in the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues and the expert mechanism on the rights of Indigenous peoples. So without further ado, let's ask our illustrious guests to take the stage.
Sego sewa kweko. Skena go waga. How are you doing? Kamaseva? Waga to Suoni ti ake tardene ake wana ahanto adeta watasoa. I would like to speak in my language before we start, because you are on the homelands of the Haudenosaunee people. It's the Nawarado and Nusungway Ditsu. It's Oya, Awanisera, Rosuoni. It's Oya, Awanisera, on the Yunguanagar and a guy at Technistan Hutsa. The Tinawarado only negat and Stassaras Oyera. Tina Gwegon Hoto Runis, a Gwegon Hoto Rungua Yunkiawis, and a Gwegon Hoto Yokotiote, Junkiawis Nagakwato no Negonos, got some Stassar and Tanugunurunquatsera. The Nitinawarado and a Technistan Hutsa. Tina Gwegon Hota Yakoyote, a Gwegon Hota Yunkiawis, Gunurun Quatsera, Gatsan Stansera, Sakonya Tatsera. Tano, what Gonorado, a Gwegu to the one and a guy at Technistan Hutsa. Tano, what Gonorado and a Gwegu to the one and a Garuhak and a Guati. Nene it's the Watsia Jokena Karakwa Runis. Segoro Swate to take over Tarihana at Technistan Hutsa. Tano wat kono warado sa wakweko, wat kono warado na lian, tano Robin. So in my language, I said it's important for us to greet the Creator and all that has been made and put on this earth, to greet and thank the natural life forces and all that they bring us, the food, the water, the love, the strength, and the respect that they give to us. And to our Mother Earth, the same. She brings us the food, the water. She gives us respect. She gives us the strength to live on our each day And she gives us the courage to be able to, because she grows all these things, the medicines and the waters. And she gives us that kind of life. And to all my relations here on this earth, because I can't do the word said before, else like we do in the Longhouse. But I also greet our elder brother, the sun, who gave us this beautiful day today so that we can be here. I greet you all, and I greet our two brilliant writers who created this wonderful work of art and wonderful work of critical thinking and thought. I'll introduce them first, and then I just want to read a poem from their book, and then they're going to read for you. So Robin Maynard is a former musician. She's a writer. She's an activist. She's living in Toronto. And she's created some beautiful words for us to read for tonight. Leanne Simpson, and I'm gonna screw up your name, so I won't do that, but you can introduce yourself in your language. Leanne Simpson has written 8 books. She is a musician as well, and she's a writer, an academic, and she's here today to help open your minds. Both these ladies are here to help you open your minds and think about perhaps things you've thought about, or maybe go into more of what you're thinking. I want to read an excerpt from one of the poems that they've put into this beautiful book by Nurbe Says. It's called The Gasp. We all begin life in water. We all begin life because someone once breathed it for us. Until we breathe for ourselves, someone breathes for us. Everyone has had someone, a woman, breathe for them. Until that first gasp for air. I can't breathe. I will breathe for you. So with that, I will ask one of you to begin reading your book. Yaukoa.
Thank you so much, Ellen. It's really great to be back here. This is actually, in many ways, the birthplace of this book, at least in this incarnation, as this is where Leanne and I actually had our first conversation. So it's really nice to be launching it here today with all of you, so thank you for coming. Dear Leanne, about 5 years now, I sat down with a copy of your book, as we have always done. I'd planned to flip through the first pages over my morning coffee. In the end, though, I stayed put, reading almost the whole text in one go, and was suddenly overcome with a strong feeling that I wanted to know you. Your words beckoned me to join you in what you called constellations of co-resistance. Constellations that affirmed life and world-making in a time of acute racial violence. We spoke on the phone shortly after. I remember that I was in a Subway restaurant in downtown Montreal, squatting the free Wi-Fi to do a final fact check of some op-ed that I'd written. I could barely make out your voice over the very loud and very bad music. I don't recall the details of what we talked about, but I know that I've wanted to chart old and new constellations with you ever since. I've been meaning to write you for a long time, and yet it's hard to know where to begin. So I guess I'll start where I'm at. I can't stop doom-scrolling the multiple crises of our time. At this moment, I'm preoccupied and filled with dread by the reports of rising temperatures, the just about last chances regularly announced by climate scientists, the continually shelved fact that things must be drastically and immediately shifted if we are to avoid untold suffering. I'm preoccupied with what goes unwritten in so many reports, but what I know in my bones. Some communities' untold suffering will vastly exceed that experienced by others. Some communities have been facing untold suffering for multiple generations. I don't want to live in this preoccupation, in this dread that sometimes comes to visit me and threatens to immobilize. So I suppose this is me reaching out, simply, for a leveling of the grounds beneath my feet, for communion, to help transform the source of this dread into a place from which we can, instead, plot, conspire, dream, and attend to life otherwise. To attend to the celebration, the preservation of life, without eliding our own community's intimate proximity to death and loss. Talking and thinking with you has always helped me focus on the vitality, the livingness of the traditions that our work emerges from, regardless of what the last several centuries of European atrocities have wreaked on our peoples. Our conversations are a salve against the sharp edges of everyday life. But I don't see you as much as I would like, and the phone is not my medium, so I've decided to write you this letter. I'm writing you a letter even though it feels cringy because I'm shy. I'm writing you a letter even though I may never send it, even though you may never write me back. I'm writing you a letter at the end of this world. From Cyclone Idai in Malawi, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe to Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas, the devastating forest fires displacing indigenous communities from the Amazon rainforest to the Muskegumang Ojibwe Nation in Northwest Ontario. Our respective communities, that is, Black and Indigenous communities, are collectively positioned on the very forefront of the unfolding catastrophe. It would require a deliberate obfuscation to view the racially uneven distribution of harms that the climate collapse engenders as accidental. Even if we didn't take into account the melting of the Arctic ice caps, rising seawaters, and eroded shorelines, desertification, and species extinction that are now nearly, if not totally, inevitable, the reality is that not only are an array of world endings already before us, they have already arrived. Our respective communities have borne already multiple apocalypses that were inflicted upon us, if unidentically, from the barbarity time of genocide, slavery, settler colonialism. The apocalypse is imagined, after all, in most classic Euro-Western settler tropes in terms of the lack of clean drinking water, the destruction of the places they live, the poisoning of the earth, inhumane and restrictive responses to people left hungry, displaced, in desperation. This is a condition that is already deeply familiar to our kin across Turtle Island and globally. You wrote about this in Dancing on Our Turtle's Back. By 1822, when many Anishinaabe in the North and the West were still living as they always had, we were facing the complete political, cultural, and social collapse of everything we had ever known. My ancestors resisted and survived what must have seemed like an apocalyptic reality of occupation and subjugation in a context where they had few choices. To remix Public Enemy, Armageddon been in effect. It is the apocalypse of slavery and settler colonialism that bind our collective pasts and presents together in the calamity at hand.
Sego ani kinawaya gitaga vijuna denawema kinagachia nishnabeko guming nadonjaba nagojawani megwado da bidas musake nadijnakas nigachinandam given bwachanguk. I'm so happy to be here in the homelands of the Ganagihaga and at Jojaga in Ellen's homelands, visiting with you all tonight. Miigwech for masking up and for coming out in person. This is my first audience in a very, very long time. And it's an honor to be here with both Robin and of course Ellen Gabriel. Robin, the first thing I underlined in my now worn out copy of your book, Policing Black Lives, was the very first line of the acknowledgments section. Writing Policing Black Lives was a community affair. Born out of movement work, it is geared towards nourishing those same movements that have given me life over the last years. I knew after reading that first line that this book was going to be distinct. Policing Black Lives was written for different reasons than most books published in Canada, reasons that I had profound respect for. Knowledge, research, analysis, and writing born out of movement work and geared towards nourishing, sustaining, and propelling movements for Black life. Robust intellectual work in the service of radical Black futurities. Policing Black Lives holds up communities and shines a light on generations of freedom fighters whose individual and collective sacrifices have brought us to this moment. As I read on, I underlined your careful and gentle insistence that Black and Indigenous struggles, while distinct, were also linked. This was significant to me because it gestured towards a more rigorous and nuanced relationality between Black and Indigenous communities, reminiscent of radical Black feminist traditions embodied in so many. Writers like Makeda Silvera, Nurbesi Phillip, Dion Brandt, and Afea Cooper. In Policing Black Lives, you were the first one to gather together the work of Black feminists and organizers and provide us with a volcano of meticulously researched evidence that destroyed Canadian innocence and exceptionalism with regards to transatlantic slavery and anti-Blackness. In Policing Black Lives, you taught me abolition on stolen land is the practice of caring. My book, As We Have Always Done, came out in the same year as your Policing Black Lives. I remember wishing your book had come out first because it would have made As We Have Always Done more complete and rigorous. I would have brought Policing Black Lives into conversation with the chapters in As We Have Always Done, and from an Indigenous perspective, pointed towards the same robust and nuanced relationality between Indigenous and Black communities you had done in Policing Black Lives, albeit from my own Nishnabek perspective. When an occasion presented itself to launch As We Have Always Done in Jojaiga, in Ganagihaga territory, where you were living at the time, I wanted to invite you into a conversation, a thinking through between yourselves and our books. You graciously accepted the invitation, and our conversation took place on this very stage on April 14th, 2018. This was the first time we had met in person. I remember the Black community of Montreal showing up in power at the event. I remember being very nervous, as one should be when their first encounter with someone is on a stage with a mic in front of a beautiful, articulate, intelligent audience. I remember your pink lipstick. I remember my Blistex. I remember being painfully aware I was dressed like I was from Ontario. I can't remember very much about what we talked about, but we obviously had the sense to record it because there's an edited transcript of part of our conversation in Until We Are Free, Reflections on Black Lives Matter in Canada. This was our first visit. Roughly a year later, in 2019, as part of my work at the Dachinta Center for Research and Learning in Danande, I helped conceptualize, organize, and actualize a solidarity gathering that took place in March in the territory of the Yellowknives Dene First Nation. Our idea was simple: to invite a small group of Black, Brown, and Indigenous activists, thinkers, writers, and organizers to spend time with us in the spring on an island in what the Yellowknives Dene know as Tinde, or the Big Lake. Together, we fished nets under the ice, traveled by snowmobile and sleigh across the frozen lake, shared moose ribs cooked over the open fire, stories from YKDFN elders, our own ideas, and time with each other. We wanted to invest in our relationship with each other and our affinities outside of the institution, the internet, and crises, because we believed that the land would pull out a different set of conversations and gift us with a different way of relating. We wanted to sit together on the land, immersed in a Dene world, engaged in a practice of Dene hospitality to see if we related to each other in a different way. This is exactly what happened. The land nurtured a set of conversations and a way of relating to each other outside of the institution and its formations. I remember you and I eating muskox around the fire, talking about how eating muskox around a fire in the bush was different from meeting in a hallway, at a bar, or at a conference, or interacting online. We were also meeting, and there was no crisis, or blockade, or protest, or agenda. We were coming together to nurture each other, to relate to each other, to listen and share, and to breathe together, to use Nurbesi Phillips' thinking. I could intellectualize about the experience and speak in terms of relationality and relationship building, something I think Black and Indigenous activists in the 1960s and 1970s understood far better than us. I could talk about this from an Indigenous methodological angle with visiting and developing relationships